Hello everyone, welcome. It is Juliet here and I'm very excited to be back with another video for you, and today we're going to be making this earring which I made using supplies that came in the Terra Verde collection from Eureka Crystal Beads. It is one of their light collections, so it is slightly smaller than their regular collections, but also has a cheaper price point. I believe it is back in stock now, so if you are interested in that, go ahead and grab it, okay? But I will link all the individual things that I'm using down below so that if you just need one or two things, you can go and grab those as well, okay? All right, so let's run through the materials that I'm using very quickly. So first of all, I have here some Czech Crescent beads. These are the Starman Crescents, and this is the color called Polychrome Aqua Teal. So you only need 2 per earring, and they just go right down here at the bottom, okay? This is a crystal navette. This is 15 millimeters by 7 millimeters. And I just love this color. They're calling it Tangerine, but it's such a nice color. It's more of a, I don't know, like a bronze or something. Then here I have some Miyuki 80 seed beads. And then I have some 11-Os that came in our mix. And I will be using, I'll show you the colors that I will be using really quickly. I will be using these green ones here on the back and at the bottom. I will be using these green lined ones here on the front central portion right here, okay? And then these bronze ones will be a little accent at the top and the bottom, and also for my hanging loop. Then I have, you're going to need 1 15-0, so I just grabbed some of the 15-0s that came in the collection as well, but that is just to help me fit my earring into my little loop here, because the space isn't that big, and really, you know, having a 15-0 there is just kind of nice. So I'm using these earring findings that did come with the collection. These are some kidney wire ear wires, and they are in the antique copper finish. And then I also have this cute little drop that came in the collection, which I have attached on with a jump ring. I have opened my jump ring, so it's ready to go. So you can see that there. I just thought I would add those, but you could add another type of drop if you wanted to. It's really up to you, or you could just omit the drop altogether, okay? I am using some nylon beading thread, some KO in this brown today. You will need, obviously, for using jump rings, you'll need some pliers, you'll need some scissors, and I'm using a size 10 beading needle. And that's it, not a lot of materials. So let me get all of this out of the way, get set up, and we'll begin. Okay, so I went ahead and put on about 4 feet of thread, because this does actually use quite a bit of thread, and I just wanted to make sure that I had enough. I'm going to leave myself a tail that I can weave in at the end, okay? So kind of 4 or 5 inches, and I'm going to pick up 18 of my 80 seed beads, and I find the easiest way to do this is to pick them up in groups of 3, so you will need 6 groups of 3, okay? And it is a good idea to always just double check that you did pick up the right amount. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, starting at my short end here, I'm going to sew through the first 9 beads, so the first half of them. And when you pull that, it should pull so that the 2 sides can sit next to each other like this, okay? So you've got 9 on each side. Go ahead, pick up 1 more bead, and go down the second line of beads. Okay, so I'm going through the next beads, and then I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to pick up one more bead, and I'm going to go down through the first line of beads. Okay, so I have this. I'm going to move forward. I'm not going to go through that end bead. I'm just going to go straight into the next bead after that end bead. Okay, so just move forward so that you're coming out from that bottom bead. Okay, so we're going to start doing some square stitch. So you're going to pick up an 11/0, and I'm picking up the color that is on the back, which is this darker kind of matte metallic green that I have. Okay, I'm going to sew through the same bead that I'm exiting from plus the next bead. So I'm coming out from this bead, there's my thread, and I'm going back through the same bead and the next bead. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm picking up one bead. I'm going through the same bead that I'm coming out from. I'm coming out from this bead right here. I'm going into it and the next bead, okay? And I'm going to repeat this until I've got 9 beads along the side here. So there's number 3, okay? So just keep going until you have 9. And as I'm doing my 9th bead, I'm only going to sew into that single bead that my thread is coming out from. So do not sew into the end bead, just sew through that one bead, okay? So you should have something that looks like this, and these might be flipping up and kind of all over the place, and that's okay at this point, okay? All right, so we're going to move over to the other side. So just skip that end bead and sew up into the next bead. Okay, so I've turned by skipping the end bead and just sewing through the next bead. And we're going to do the exact same thing on this side. So you're going to pick up one bead, you're going to sew through the bead that you're exiting from plus the next bead. Okay, and once again we're going to do 9, and when you get to the end just sew through just that one bead. Okay, okay, I'm adding on my very last one, and I'm just going to sew through just the same bead again, just that one. Okay, okay, so it now looks like this, and I'm going to turn and I'm going to sew straight down that very first bead that I just added on, and then I'm also going to continue down all the green beads on the side, and they may be, you know, all over the place. You might have to kind of hunt for them, but just make sure you don't miss any of them, and you should be going through 9 beads. Okay, this, and then I'm going to go up through the 9 beads on this side. So I'm not sewing through any beads here. I'm just going straight from this bead straight up into the next beads over here. Okay, and you'll see when you do this, like when you start to pull, it's going to start to pull inwards to form the back of our bezel. Okay, so continue through all of those beads. And when you get to the bottom, you're going to go all the way up the first side again. So just skip straight from this bead straight into that bead, okay? And go ahead and start to pull it all nice and tight in, okay? Okay, so it should look something like this, all right? And go ahead, because we've sewn through this side twice, we're going to sew through the other side twice. Just make sure that you exit that 9th bead, okay? So make sure you're counting as you go. So that is 6, and then I have 7, 8, 9, 3 more to go. Okay, so make sure you're pulling that all nice and tight, okay? And then you're going to turn, and so if my thread is coming out in this direction going this way, okay, I'm going to just turn into the bead directly above where I am and going the other way, okay? Sorry. Okay, so I just came out from this bead and I sewed it through this bead, and now I'm coming out this way. I'm going to flip this over like this, okay? So it should kind of form like a little boat shape, okay? Is what you want at this point. And we're going to do the same thing that we did, but I'm going to switch colors. I'm going to use this green lined bead, which makes the entire thing look a little bit brighter. Okay, so I'm coming out this bead right here. I'm going to sew through the other side of that bead plus the next bead. So I'm kind of doing the exact same thing I did before. I'm just working in the opposite direction. So pick up your bead, sew through the bead that you're exiting from plus the next bead. Okay, and you're going to again do it 9 times. Okay, so I'm picking up my 9th bead, and again I'm only going to sew through that one bead instead of moving forward through the next bead, okay? And then I'm going to skip straight over the end bead and sew up into the bead on this side right here. And then I'm ready to begin my 9 on this side. So go ahead, pick up your first bead, sew through the that bead again and the next bead. So I'm not sewing into the 2 end beads, this bead and this bead at all, okay? So if your thing is not working out, make sure you're not sewing into these 2 beads at all, okay? So go ahead, do your 9, and again stop when you get here, only sew through that single bead, okay? Okay, I'm adding my last bead on, and I'm only going through that 1 bead. And I've already used like half my thread. So, okay, so just turn. I'm coming out this bead right here, okay, right before my end bead. Just turn and go straight up into the bead you just added and sew through all those side beads, just like we did on the back side. We're gonna do the same thing on the front side. So just make sure you catch all of those beads. And when you get to the middle, just skip this bead and sew straight through the green ones on the other side. So just hop straight on over. Now don't pull tight until after you get everything threaded, okay? Because we still have to put our stone in. Okay, and so also skip right across here and sew into the beads on the first side one more time just to close up that bottom gap. And again, I'm still not pulling tight because I still have to put my stone in. Okay. Now, grab your stone, stick it in there. you can start to tighten around it. Okay, so it looks like this. It's not in there perfect yet, but it's pretty good. Okay. I've gone through this side twice. I'm going to go up through this side again, the next side that is, because I've only gone through there once so far. And because I have a little bit of a gap up here, I'm going to go down the other side as well, just to kind of try and close that in a little bit better. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit of a gap because we're going to put a bead. As you can see here, we will have a bead on the front, but I'm just trying to get my bezel to kind of look more even at this point. Okay, so you're just kind of, you can squeeze it, you can kind of massage it, do what you need to get your stone sitting in there. Okay, mine is pretty good right now, I think. So I'm just going to come up to the top. And I'm going to turn and I'm going to go down through the equivalent bead, which is this one right here. So I'm not going into this top bead, I'm going into the first bead. So I'm exiting from this bead this way, and I'm going to sew into this bead and the second bead. Like this, okay? Then I'm going to pick up my crescent bead, and I'm going to pick it up so that it's going to lay kind of like this. Okay, so that means I have to go into this bead on this side, so you might need to try and hold it up, make sure you're going in the right way. Okay, so that when it lays down, it's going to sit like so. Okay, so just make sure you're going into it the right way. I'm going to pick up 3 more of my beads that I used on the back of my bezel, which are these more solid green beads. Okay, so you're going to pick up 3 of those, and I'm going to go through the other hole of my crescent bead. Okay, and then I'm going to go up through the bottom bead, not the very bottom point, but the next bead over, and I'm going to work all the way up to the top. So just go through all of the 8 O's on the side. And when you pull, this will sit like so. Okay, so just keep going until you exit right before the top bead. Okay, so I'm coming out right before the top bead, and I'm going to pick up one of these kind of bronze looking, root beer looking beads. Okay, 11 O's, and I'm going to skip this middle bead, and I'm going to sew straight into the next bead, and I'm going to sew all the way down. Okay, so there's my little decoration bead right there. Okay, I'm going to sew all the way down until right before the bottom bead. So exiting the bead right here before the bottom bead. Okay, so I'm exiting right before that point bead. Again, I'm going to pick up my crescent bead, and I'm going to make sure that it's going to sit the way that I want it to sit, which is like this. Okay, it's going to sit like this. I'm going to pick up 3 more of my green solid colored beads. I'm going to go through the crescent bead, and then I'm going to go into the second bead and the first bead that I started in. So that's the bead I started in right here. There's my bottom bead. Okay, so I'm going through those two right before the bottom bead. Okay, so we now have this. I'm going to pick up a bronze colored 11-0 again, and I'm going to sew up through the next two beads right here. So I'm skipping that bottom bead and I'm sewing up through the two that are attached to my crescent bead. Okay, I need to tighten all that up. And there is my little bronze accent bead. He's kind of hanging out for a second. Okay, so we now have this. All right, go ahead, sew through the hole on the crescent bead, and then you're going to sew through your 3 beads on your crescent bead right here. You may not be able to get through all of them. The angle is a little bit funny. Okay, I'm just going to put that tail behind me for now. All right, now I'm going to pick up 7 of my solid green colored beads. Okay, so I've got 7 beads, and I'm going to sew straight into the 3 beads on the other side right here. And this is going to be where we hang our little dangle. Okay, so the jump ring just goes right in there. Okay, I'm going to sew up through the outer hole of the crescent bead, and then I'm going to sew all the way up to the top of my piece. And I am going to go through the very, very top bead. Okay, so here I am at the top. I'm going to pick up 2 of my bronze or root beer colored beads and 1 15-0 and 2 more bronze 11-0s. Okay, I'm going to enter again into the same bead that I started from. Then I'm going to sew forward through my root beer bead, or back I guess I should say, and then I'm going to sew forward through the 8-0 again. Okay, I'm going to go up through my 2 bronze colored beads. I'm going to skip the 15 and I'm going to go down the other 2 beads and just pull that in so that that gets really tight, and then I'm going to go through the 8-0 one more time. Okay, so that is my hanging loop. So go ahead and sew one more time into the 11-0 at the front. Okay, this one right here. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to sew through this and we're going to pull the 11-0s inwards. So go ahead, sew through your inner beads. Okay, so we're just kind of attaching this 11-0 to these inner beads. So through the 11-0 at the bottom. Okay, and then sew up through this side as well. And I'm kind of pulling quite tight to pull all of that upwards and inwards and a little bit tighter in, okay? Okay. Okay, so it should now look like this. Continue on and sew through that top bead as well, and then move back into the 8/0 at the top. Okay, now if you want, you can sew down here and attach the bottom right here, but I don't think that I really need to do that. What I do want to do is reinforce this line here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew forward until 2 right before the end. I'm going to sew through here, and I'm going to sew all the way through here and then back up again. Okay, then you're pretty much done. You can tie off your threads. Anywhere you want to reinforce, go ahead and reinforce, but if you're happy with it, you don't need to do any more reinforcing. Tie in your threads, and then we will attach our earring finding and our jump ring, and we'll be done. Okay, so I'm gonna reinforce this, and then I'll tie in my threads, and then I'll come back. Okay, I am back, and I finished my earring, and I just love how these turned out. I like the different finishes, and I think the little drops just finish them off really nicely. So it's a very easy bezel for a very tricky stone to bezel around. So I hope you try these if you have these Navettes. They look really nice, and you don't have to do this bottom bit. If you wanted to do something else with it once you got it bezeled, you could absolutely do that as well. Okay, so do check out the Terra Verde collection at Eureka, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in another video very soon. Take care. Bye.